There is a ton more content coming to Warframe and an entirely new game with Frame in the title, and I honestly can't believe what I'm seeing. I wasn't expecting it this year. I am so freaking stoked, and you should be too, whether you're a long time or previous Warframe player or you're someone who's only just hearing about it, because Warframe is free to play and it provides more content and more gameplay value than so many other games, whether they're paid or free, and it doesn't have any sort of too insane like battle pass system or like crazy microtransactions. It's actually like just an insane value package, and they're adding so much more content to it this year. So if you missed it, TinnoCon 2022 was today at the day of recording. They always do it at the start of TwitchCon. It started as this little just like basically dev stream that they did kind of at a more in-person event, and it kind of blew up, and the community around Warframe has always been super tight knit. And it's turned into this big like thing, and they were really hyping up this year, and I was kind of confused because Warframe, so many games have war in the name now. Warframe has kind of been reaching the end of its life, or it seemed like it, because it's been going on for nearly a decade now, and it's kind of reaching that point. It's like, all right, what else are you gonna do? Well, not only did they announce and trailer an entire new game, but they're still doing a ton more content for Warframe. So Warframe is a third-person looter shooter. It's designed to be free to play, so anyone can play it, and it's on everything. It's on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. It's on the Nintendo Switch now. There isn't a ton of cross-play stuff yet, but you can play on everything. And whenever they ported it to Switch, they let you like import your account, but they haven't. I don't think they've fully fleshed out cross-play or cross-progression yet. But like, it's on everything. And at one point in time, it runs on Linux just fine. I remember testing that. At one point in time, it still ran on Windows XP. And so I actually have footage of me playing it on Windows XP before they completely overhauled their graphics engine. It used to be a DirectX 9 game, and they have iterated it all the way up to DirectX 12 is in beta now for it. And they have completely enhanced it and overhauled it. So the gameplay style is a looter shooter, but that sounds completely inaccurate to what the game actually is. And you're watching gameplay now because you are a space ninja. You are bouncing and rolling and flying across the map at the speed of light with swords and throwing knives and guns and a pet and doing all these crazy abilities. A looter shooter doesn't even come close to describe what this space ninja game is, but it's designed, you run through maps or games or game modes or whatever with a squad of 4. You can play by yourself, you can solo queue, you can play with randoms. It's always a good time. I've very rarely ever been matched up with someone where it was a bad time. I've about 200 hours in the game. I played it really heavily. I got into it really heavily in like 2017. I stopped around. They added what they called an open world update. That's not really a good descriptor. It was more like the wild areas from Pokemon Sword and Shield. I remember beta testing it on PS3 back in the day because it was one of the only free games on PS3 back in like 2014-ish. But I got really heavily into it in like 2017, 2018 and kind of put it down for a while. And it's been on my list to come back to because they've added a bunch more story stuff. So when the game first came out, and I think it still applies, it's more of a what we call a wiki dive game where like you have to spend a lot of time on wikis and other websites to figure out what you're supposed to do for all the crazy unlocks. And that was also the case for the main story and going through the star charts. They have improved that a lot, so it's a lot more accessible now jumping in. The new user experience is really stellar. The story missions that they have revamped and then added in are incredible, and they're adding more. So a bunch of announcements came out of TinnoCon this year. They've got a new Prime version of a Warframe, which is just kind of, it kind of has like a gacha system, but not in a you gotta pay $50 for them on your phone kind of thing, but you just unlock them through like crafting systems in the game. There is like a third party, off-game market that you can buy them in, but but they have frames, which are like basically the heroes, the character abilities, but you can make them your own with more ability cards and things like that. But then the Prime versions are like the super omega awesome versions, and they will often do new Prime versions of old frames that didn't have them, and then they will vault some, which means you can still play it, you can still acquire it through other means, but you can't officially unlock it in the game for a little while. And they have released a new one for Korra, who uses some crazy whip and dual knives, and it has a pet, and it's like all gold and purple and just looks freaking awesome. I'm stoked for that. And then they announced 2 expansions, not 1, but 2. The first one is Veilbreaker, which is more of a standard story expansion, kind of following up on the leftovers of the New War campaign stuff. And following that, it's probably going to be a little bit shorter. But then they have a whole, it looks cool, like I'm stoked to play it, but they have a whole separate like lore story expansion called the Duviri Paradox, where you play as a completely different character than your usual Tenno character. you play as an outlaw known as the Drifter. And it almost seems like some weird, like, Groundhog Day death loop scenario where he starts everything over each day trying to break out or whatever, kind of like Hades. So that's going to be really interesting. I don't know, because I haven't played some of the newer story stuff. I don't know if they've done story missions before where you just play completely as someone else, but this kind of gets you more in the lore, the background of what's happening in the game. So I'm very excited for this because this is absolutely wild. That is a ton of content that they're adding in here along with the Prime. There was a bunch of other announcements. I highly recommend going watching the VOD on their YouTube channel, linked below if you want to see more. But the big drop that dropped at the end was that Rebecca Ford, who has been the main like community face of the game for a very long time, she has been like a huge champ of the game, is actually becoming the creative director of Warframe, which is wild. But that's happening because the creative director for Warframe, Steve Sinclair, is moving on to their new game, Soulframe. And they gave a whole, like, how long is this? Like 5-minute, 6-minute cinematic reveal for the new game. Now it's pretty slow. You don't really see a whole lot of what the gameplay will be, but it's got a lot more. It still has some of the Warframe vibes, and they talk about like other souls possessing your frame, but it's got a whole lot more like high fantasy vibe going on instead of being sci-fi. And it looks pretty wild. The description on the YouTube video, the website is just dead. Like it's been, everyone's trying to access it, so it's not loading for me at all. But the description is that it's a free-to-play open world adventure heavily influenced by themes of nature, restoration, and exploration. It's completely independent and a uniquely immersive experience, led by, you know, everything that they've learned and developed through Warframe. I am very excited to see what they do for this, because I loved the storytelling that Digital Extremes did in this game. And if you're not familiar with the developers Digital Extremes, they go all the way back to the 90s. Like, they worked on Unreal Tournament 2004. They worked on a lot of that, and then they've worked on games like Dark Sector, and then they started just doing their own thing with Warframe. Once they figured out how to present it in Warframe, their storytelling was phenomenal. So to come in fresh with a brand new game at the start, I am very excited to see what they do for it, and a lot of cool stuff is happening with this game right now. There were drops in the TennoCon stream. If you missed them, sorry. However, they do have a new pickup you can get in the market for just like 1 point or whatever to get some extra cosmetics available starting today, probably only available for a couple days if you want the Duviri flare from that expansion on your character. So go pick that up if you haven't logged in a while. Maybe update your game, check out the new stuff. I'm going to be doing so. I'm going to make it a mission to finish the new, you know, story stuff this year before all the big hitters start coming out in the fall and the winter seasons. Because I really want to get back into this game. They also announced that they're doing another game, another MMO-like game with the developer called Airship Syndicate, and we're going to find out more about that at the Game Awards. So I don't know what that'll look like, but that's exciting that they actually have 2 new projects, as well as, I would assume, by making Rebecca creative director of Warframe and they have this new stuff coming out, that they're still going to be making stuff for Warframe, which is really exciting. Let me know your favorite updates from TennoCon or what your thoughts are on Warframe in the comments section down below. Join us on Discord, discord.gg/eposfox, and remember, be kind, rewind.